morning. Good morning. I am excited about today's class. I am always excited about teaching. There's never a time that I'm not, but we are definitely in some really interesting times in this marketplace with, major adjustments that are happening, and our sellers and our buyers are, looking to us with a lot of questions. What's going on in this market? Did I lose money? Can I still get the price that I want? Can I get a deal? Am I going to overpay? Every state, every area is challenged right now in trying to figure out where this new market has gone and what the new prices are. And so we are in a unique time, and I think a really wonderful time to become experts in our marketplace. I mean, experts, the go-to person. You want to become that person. So becoming a pricing strategist takes time. You're not going to become a pricing strategist overnight. It's going to take practice. It's going to take diligence. It's going to take study and research and really a love for your craft. Okay. And when you have a love for this craft, it becomes this automatic, like, oh, you want to talk to me about this area? I can tell you about that area. You want to talk about that area? I know that area. When you don't know an area, you can safely say, well, I'm not sure. I can definitely look into it. I'd be happy to do it. But let me tell you where I think it could compare to the area that I'm familiar with. We want to be really, really honest about what we know and what we don't know. Because when we assume or we, let's just say we lie, we don't want to lie to people, but we make this kind of like, oh, I think I know. And then somebody else comes along, or maybe they know better than you, and they question you. So this is why we're here today, is we are here to become pricing strategists. We're in the process of becoming experts at being an advisor on pricing in your area. So this isn't always, I'm going to say, the sexiest subject, because we always want to talk about prospecting and how to make money and how I'm going to grow my business to 7 figures and all that stuff. Trust me, I love all of that. But the way you become that person that gets to that level is because you're an expert in your market, and then people will call you. That's the whole thing. So don't miss, this fact that, hey, I do have to come back and do my GEs, if you want to call them. I don't look at this as GEs. I look at this as a specializing, okay? Specializing. And if you want to get good, you're going to have to slow it down and say, okay, MJ, you're right. Talk to me, show me what you got, okay? Because that's what we're going to do today. And as much as I want to rah all the time, we can't always do that. We need to get down to brass tacks and really figure out what's going to make us better at our craft. Okay, agree? So if you're not in showing me your beautiful face, like Chris, I'm going to call you out, because I'd like to see if you're here at least every now and then. I'd like to be able to see your face. And if you're on Zoom, that's fabulous. Hi, Jessica. Happy New Year to you, dear.
Hi, Happy New Year.
Over my Facebook peeps, because I am going to pull up a screen. And you got to move all these dealing with Bobs over here. Okay, here we go. All right, so let me go ahead and we're going to share this screen here. All right. Guys ready to learn? Because we're in learning mode right now. Desktop 1, here we go. And as always, I'm going to have lots to share with you. So we'll do a slideshow, I guess. It's all good. Okay, guys. Number 1, you want to become a pricing strategist. You want to become an advisor. Whole reason why we're here. There are 4 parts to this class, or this workshop, if you will. Okay, 4 parts. Why? Because again, you can't learn this overnight. Okay, you cannot learn this overnight. Someone says they can't get onto Zoom. I'm not sure what it is. So let's get into, here we go. I do have a certificate of completion that I decided to do within my state of California, more for the customer, really not for myself, because I believe that I was already at that place with so much love that I have for knowing the market. But I did learn quite a few other interesting things about what I didn't know, having to do with appraisal, you guys. And if there's any appraiser here, let me know, because I have a lot of respect for people that do appraisal. There's so much to learn. And yet we, as real estate professionals, are thrown into a world of having to start appraise property. Would you agree? We're little mini appraisers without being appraisers, just like we're mini lawyers when we're not lawyers. We're this like facade of what we need to know how to do and have this expectation that people have, and they expect from us at a high level of knowing these things. Okay, would you agree? You got to agree with me. There's no way, because explain to me these contracts, but I'm not an attorney, right? And explain to me this marketplace, but I'm not an appraiser. All right. So we are becoming pricing strategists in 4 parts. This is part 2. And if you missed part 1, you're going to want to go back and watch it, because that was the premise to the beginning of this. If I summarize it all, we'll be here too long. Okay. So right now we're in identifying the selection of what we're going to compare. As easy as it sounds, it takes a process. The process needs to be slowed down, okay? So when you start to choose the best comparable properties, that's the key to your CMA. When you don't choose the right ones, you end up with, you're off on your price per square foot, right? You're off on just the whole median price point that you're going to list the property for. So you've got to choose the best ones. We're going to talk today about identifying the subject characteristics, a little bit about location, the date of the last closed sale, and size guidelines. When we get into part 3, it's going to get sexier. Okay. And what I mean by that is now we're going to go into talking a little bit more about RVMs. Okay. We're going to talk about the roadblocks that we get into. We're going to talk about a checklist that I'm going to give you on how to go through property evaluation, kind of like an appraiser would without being an appraiser. And then we're going to go right into facts, numbers, and adjustments, because you have to learn how to adjust. Most of us we're not even taught how to make an adjustment to a price, to an amenity, to an upgrade, to a location, to a negative situation, like, being in an industrial district, or a negative situation where you got the train behind you or a freeway behind you. There are adjustments that we have to learn to make, okay? And that takes some skill and a little know-how. Once you know how to do it, you're golden, okay? So that's actually part 3. And I bring that up right away because I don't want you to think you're going to get all that today, because it's a lot that I'm going to give you. All right, so question. And, a lot of you are still getting to know me. I don't know all of you very well yet. Participation is how you grow. And I'm not here to just be somebody that just talks. I could talk all day. You could probably talk all day to your clients. The more you get involved or ask questions, please, I'm going to end up asking you some things and open up your mic. And I want you to take from here growth. You can't become an expert unless you ask the questions that you don't know, and you're going to learn from each other. There's some really great people here in our membership. Okay. So let me ask you this question. What happens if you choose a comp that doesn't align with the subject property? Common sense. Chris, you want to answer?
You end up undervaluing or overvaluing the property.
Yep. I love the answer. I mean, it's pretty bottom line, isn't it? It means bottom line, common sense. It's a mismatch comparable. All it's going to do is complicate the rest of the process. The minute you throw one bad apple into the bunch, it's either heavier, it's either lighter, and it's going to throw off your price per square foot. It's going to throw off everything. So when you choose incorrectly, it leads to what Chris said, overpricing, underpricing. It's a miscalculation. You miss the mark. When you miss the mark on pricing, you throw everything off. Not only do you lose credibility as a pricing strategist with your seller, The buyers are going to come. They're either going to undervalue. Oh, thank goodness that they priced it that way. Or you're going to tick off the rest of the neighbors in the area because you didn't price it correctly. And you're going to lose transactions and you're going to lose the ability to even work in that area. So it sounds like common sense. It should be common sense, but you can choose a wrong comp. And it happens a lot. We can also miss a comparable that we should have gotten. Okay, that's one thing you don't want to do, is miss a comparable. Has anybody ever missed a comparable at the kitchen table where they're telling you, oh, well, what about the house over there? What about the one that happened over here? That's happened to me. I'm not going to say it hasn't happened to me. I'd be lying if I did. And that was newer in my career. And I went, oh, shoot. I look so bad, number one. Then I'm there on my computer, I'm looking it up, and there it is. There's the one that I needed, the one that's actually going to give them the higher value that the market needed for their house. So you've got to be really careful that you're doing your study. That's why we're slowing it down, even with this. Okay. So let me go back. Question: what process do you follow when you begin to do your CMA study? Do you have a process? Do you have the way that you start this way and then you do the next thing and then you do the next thing? And this is the beginning of my research. Does everybody have a process? It's okay to say if you don't. So Christina, do you have a process? Nancy, Jessica, Kier, Chris?
So I don't have a set process, or I don't know if my process is the right way. But I basically get the subject property, and then I look around in a quarter-mile radius, properties that are similar with the same bedrooms, bathrooms, or if it has a pool, same garage, about the same size. And then I pull those in and look at what's closed in that area. And then from there, I go on the Cloud CMA, and then I put in the address and see also what Cloud CMA gives me from lows to highs.
Excellent, excellent. See, you're telling me what your process is, and I love that, because you have a process that's already in your mind. It means that you're doing CMAs, you've done them before, and you have your way, right? And maybe you were taught a certain way and then you changed it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, we change things up based on what we like and what works for us. You just have to have a system, right? Kier, do you have a system? Oh, you're not, you're muted.
Oh, sorry, I thought.
I use RPR.
You use RPR, and that's your system?
Yes.
Okay. Jessica, do you have a system? And you can share?
I first go on the MLS and kind of do the same thing, but I go like a quarter mile, then I do a half mile, and then I do a mile to see kind of what is a little further out. And then once I do that, then I'll pull a dirty CMA and go back and forth to see if there's any that I missed that maybe weren't on the MLS, stuff like that.
Okay, do you want to tell everybody what you mean by dirty CMA?
Sorry. If you go into Cloud CMA, you can just type in the address of the property, put, the bedroom size, not the bedroom size, I'm sorry, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, and the size of the property, and it'll pull similar comps as well.
Right. I just like I like your terminology. That was cool. That was cool. So, okay, so she has her system. Nancy, do you want to share if you have a system, or Christina?
Well, what I've done in the past is similar with the MLS. I've gone up to a mile with similar specs, and then I've done the RPR, but I've never done the Cloud CMA. So that's good to know.
Okay, good. Thank you for sharing. Christina, can you share? Are you able to share, and do you want to share? Go ahead, dear, you're on. Are you able to share, dear? I don't think she's on. You're unmuted.
You hear me?
Yes,
Can you hear
for
me?
it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I thought I was talking all this time.
No, go for it.
Yeah, so I do mine the old fashioned way, kind of like the way, Chris was saying, like you pull up the subject property and then, anything around it. In the beginning I did a lot of condos, so I would, try to pull up comps from the actual building because like, in downtown there are condos that are brand new and there are condos that have been like 20, 30 years old. So, always looking for like type of properties. And then for homes, like I start in the neighborhood and then just kind of like work my way out if I don't have enough. And sometimes like neighborhoods, they don't have like really good comps because like for instance, affluent neighborhoods, they have like these huge, multi-million dollar houses and then they have like these little bungalows, but they still like are like a million or two and
Right.
they don't comp right. So, you just kind of have to give it your best shot.
I love what you said about that. They don't comp right, right? They have challenges. What area and city are you in?
I'm in Los Angeles, like the central part. So it's like, like all over like Mid Wilshire, Hancock Park, I'm like Oxford Square, Windsor Square, downtown, like all around that area.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So thank you for sharing. Let me tell you right now, I am not an expert in her area. I don't know her area. I don't understand anything about what she's talking about when she says those areas. So this is where, excuse me, guys, this is where you have the opportunity to become an expert, to actually say, I'm a pricing strategist in Hancock Park and in this area and in that area and that area. Now, what I want to help everybody understand is, can you become a pricing strategist in every area? Yes, when you learn the study, behind it. It's going to take you a little longer to maybe do that research. I would much rather refer to you, Christina, than to go do that work, in all honesty. Many of us want, I go anywhere, have wheels, will travel to a certain degree. I'm not going to go put myself in a position where I'm going to be outside of my specialty or my zone. We have to be really true to ourselves with that. And that's just my personal opinion. Okay. So one thing I want to share with you is we shouldn't guess. I think we all know that, but I think a lot of people do guess and rely solely on another source's evaluation. Okay. When we're relying only on another source, then we're really not doing the work. Okay. The seller, the buyer, they expect you to be the realtor, the one that's going to provide them an objective, on target counsel price. Give me what you understand and know that's going on in this marketplace, because you're going to end up with serious consequences when you have off target pricing. Totally 100%. When you know your area really well, what happens? The minute a property goes on the market and you're like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? They totally undervalued that property. Or, oh my gosh, they're out of their mind. It is completely overpriced. Now, you can only do that and say that if you are an expert in that area. Otherwise, you're having to do some research, okay? So you need to create and follow an orderly system. We can't just rely on RVMs, you guys. They need to be only a source of added support. Okay, they're gonna have some weight to them and some strength to them, but they're added support. You're gonna have to go and match the properties. You're gonna have to go collect the data. You're gonna have to go and formulate a rational, fact-based priced opinion. Facts, especially when you end up with an engineer or somebody that goes, show me the numbers. Fact-based price opinion. Yes, remember, this is your professional opinion. Just like I said, it's my opinion to give a referral to Christina. I'd rather do that than to go and try to figure it all out. It's my opinion. Your professional opinion counts and it matters. And although it's an opinion, it's got to present itself with what? Correct data. All the current and material facts that are going to affect the price, not just pulling up the little comps around the area in the radius circle. I'm also saying current and material facts that could affect the price. There's so much more that can affect the price than just comparing bedrooms and bathrooms and square footage. And I know you guys all know that, right? So when we're getting started, We're identifying and selecting the appropriate comps, the ones that are appropriate, the best ones that are the most like for like within that proximity, right, to the subject property. And we're going to use some of the similar standards. We're going to identify and access available sources of information. So I'm going to access these other RVMs like RPR in California. I'm going to access other places. I'm going to probably look at Zillow. I'm going to see what's going on Redfin. I'm going to look at all these other places. There's sources of information. That's it. Okay. Some of them we learn how to use and really target in RPR. You can really target, but there's nothing like your local MLS. That data is going to give you way more specifics than sometimes what gets pulled. And I've proven that when I've done classes, when I've compared MLS to RPR and things get missed. Okay. Recognize and overcome the challenges to selecting the best comparables. Christina, you mentioned something about, there's challenges when you're selecting a bungalow versus maybe the condo and how it doesn't comp out right. So you have to recognize what those challenges are in your marketplace, okay? So systems, I'm all about systems. I would say I'm a pretty structured person, okay? That's just my general personality of being very structured. I don't do well if it's not structured. So a client is expecting from you that you've done all your homework. And it starts out with you being organized enough. So the first thing you need to do is, yes, we're identifying the selection of the comparables. We've got to collect detailed information for the subject property. Detail, not just an overview and a bird's eye view, but we've got to start breaking it all down. So yes, I got to get a property profile or whatever state I'm in where I get that title source of information that gives me the most recent information about the mortgage history, the tax information, if it's in a trust, all of that. Now I'm looking at the street address, the neighborhood name. What neighborhood are they in? What municipality, what county? What year was it built? What are the major improvements that were made, if any? Before we go out on a listing appointment, I believe there are some questions we should be asking a seller before we just run comps, you guys. And we need to let them know, may I have a conversation with you as I prepare a detailed analysis on the evaluation of your home? I'm going to need maybe about 5 or 7 minutes of your time. Now start to ask them about major improvements that they've made. We start asking them, of course, questions like, how much do you owe on your property? And do you have any silent seconds and things like that? That's going to be because you're going to be preparing net sheets and so forth for them. You're going to look at the lot size, the total square footage, the number of bedrooms and baths. Yes. Recent updates or renovations, asking them any new roofs, any new HVAC systems, any new room additions. Because what happens if you show up and you did all of your comparables around a 3-bedroom and they have 4? And they have a room addition that's permitted, and now you've missed that. You've missed, your comps are off now. They're off because now you're going to have to make a complete different comparison because maybe that room is not a standard size measurement. Maybe that's an oversized room and they've counted it as a separate master bedroom suite. Condition of interior finishes and fixtures. I want to ask a little bit about that. And then I want to ask about special amenities. Okay, swimming pools, outside decks, freestanding garages, whatever that is. Oh, so I need to ask a few more questions than just running comps. The answer is yes. Okay, so you need to decide what your system is and ask a few questions to your seller so that you can go in a little bit more empowered. Okay. Next thing is reviewing property tax assessments and then the previous closed sales data. So now I've collected this detailed information. I'm looking at property taxes as a guide. What's going on? I'm looking to see if there's Mello-Roos, any other special assessments outside of Mello-Roos. Okay, remember that assessed value for tax purposes is not the same as market value for investment. When you're analyzing an investment property versus a residential, different. Okay, so that is not the same as market value. You're looking at your MLS, your local MLS, you're printing out these sheets, When was the property last sold? You're looking at final sales prices, purchase terms. How did the buyer 2 years ago purchase? How many days was it on the market? Any pricing adjustments that were made for an ADU in the back? Were there any price adjustments that were made because they renovated the backyard, or they took a slope and they leveled a slope? You've got to read descriptions. What about concessions to the sale? If it was applicable, they had to give a $20,000 concession for the roof. Your system means that you are reading what happened to other properties. Because if your seller knows about that neighbor, or knows a friend of a friend who was the co-worker of blah, 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 and they know everything that happened and you don't, but it was clearly on the MLS, you failed in doing your research, because that could mean an adjustment of a $20,000, price point for them in a betterment, or it could lower the value. Okay. So we're talking about the system. Yes. Can you tell me your name, please?
Hi, my name is Priya.
Hi, Priya. How are you this morning?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm
Thank you
fantastic.
so much. I
What's
love
on your
this
mind?
question. So my question is, how do we use the tax assessments in the CMA? Like, clearly they are quite far from like the market value. So what is their significance in a CMA, and how can we use them?
What an excellent question. I love that. I'm sure some of you should have thought about asking that question, or wanted to, right? Listen, the tax, first of all, let's say you go to a builder. Anybody visiting builders lately? Because builders are offering some amazing incentives, by the way, for buyers, and they're offering some pretty good commissions for us. So Priya, when there are taxes that are at a difference maybe of 5 to 6%, it's going to change the assessed value of the property, because someone is either going to want to not pay for the higher value of the taxes, and or if there's a Melrose, that's also going to be a negative for someone. So it affects market value, because I can sell a property currently, like where I live now, and now a Melrose has just dropped off. That was about $6,500 a year. So now that $6,500 is added value to my property in the sense of desirability. And now that person is not going to have to pay that extra added tax. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So, you can go literally down maybe half a mile from where I live, and I'm at a 1% tax rate, and they're already at a 1.8 tax rate. So people will say, oh, I don't want to buy over there because I'm already paying $12,000 in taxes. So I have to consider that the market value there will always be different. And I'm always going to have to adjust because of what somebody is going to have to be able to afford and qualify for. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I have a follow-up question to that. Like, say, like for each 0.5% of taxes, how much should we deduct from the assessed value? Like, how do I calculate that? Like, okay, they are paying 0.5% more in taxes, so maybe I should take 10K off, 30K off. Like, how do I calculate that?
Well, it's not necessarily a calculation that you're going to adjust. We don't necessarily adjust and go up and down because of the tax rate. What we're looking at is the area of what the differences are. So for example, half a mile from me, it's 1.8 and I'm at 1%. So that's already a difference of how much?
0.8?
It's a 7% difference, right? So I've got this 7% difference that already tells you the difference in my market value, just by the difference in the tax rate.
Got it. Sorry, I think I'm missing something, but how do we get like the 7% here? You said So here it's 1, and of like a few miles away it's 1.8. So
Correct.
how are we finding that, calculating that 7%?
Well, because I mean, I'm paying an extra 7% to live a half a mile up the street, right? So
Okay.
I'm at 1%. I'm going to pay 7% more to live over here.
Okay.
And that in itself is already going to be assessed in my value. So that's going to change the market value because it automatically goes up in price. It goes up in value.
Okay. Got it.
And I can help you a little bit more after if you want to give some examples. I might have a couple of examples to give. But
Thank
that's
you.
a great question. And that's a question that we don't get too much into, other than the fact that there's a desirability factor, Priya, of somebody saying, oh, I am going to pay regardless, no matter what, I'm going to pay 7 to 8% more just to live half a mile up the street, because that tax bracket is providing me parks and a rec center and all these other things. So the value of my property goes up perhaps just because of what that tax might offer. But
Okay.
you're paying for it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, filtering is super important when you're choosing the best comps. Okay, now we're filtering out what we don't want, the good and the bad. So we're sifting and we're sorting all the time as we're going through, because the minute you choose one bad comp, you've already thrown everything else into your equation, right? Your whole equation, all your equations are going to be off, right? So there's a process to filter. Oh, okay. So yeah, I need to filter. All right, great. The location. Where is it located? My subject property. Is it on a corner? Is it in a cul-de-sac? Where is it? School district becomes a big factor for many people, even for resale, okay? Because people purchase just to live in a certain area. Where I live in Chino Hills, the same places in Irvine, the schools are amazing. Don't know how it is in other places, but I know my area's out here, okay? So school district, you need to filter. The minute you cross over just a few blocks over, you could literally be in a different school district, which is going to affect value. Somebody's not going to want to pay as much, or they're going to want to pay more just to be in that zip code. Obviously, we're filtering size, the date of the last closed sale, the style. Christina brought up condo versus bungalow, the age of the property, the improvements, and the amenities. So we're filtering all these things. Now we get into like step number 3 in our system. We've got to analyze the neighborhood. Yeah, neighborhood's pretty important. People have a desirability about where they want to live. And the condition of all the neighbors' properties and the nearby properties on the same block as the subject property is a big deal. The minute you have a dilapidated subject property around a lot of beautiful properties, that may do what to the value of the property? Well, it's going to bring it down just a little bit just because of the way it looks from the outside. But it can also say this is great because at least I know I'm in a neighborhood where people are keeping up their properties. So the condition of nearby properties. So what does that mean to you as a pricing strategist? I actually should preview the neighborhood before I finish up my CMA. What? So I got to get in my car and I got to go drive out there and look? Heck yeah, you do. When you're relying only on doing a bird's eye view from a computer, you're not really giving great counsel. I need to look around and see what's going on. Get in your dang car and go look. This is why when somebody calls and says, I would like for you to do a CMA on my property, I'd like an evaluation, and you say you're going to be there by 6 o'clock tonight, you better already know that area really well. Otherwise, you ask them for a minimum of 2 days to do a detailed search, and you tell them why. You tell them because as your advisor, I have a process and a system to make sure that I give you the best value and analysis. Otherwise, that's the average Joe that goes, I'll just run a such and such, and I'll give you what I think a price range would be without doing your homework, okay? Proximity to transportation, the neighborhood, how close is it? How close is it to entertainment, to shopping, to parks, to recreation? to trails, to noise? Is it a negative thing? Are there potential hazards? Do you have, in Los Angeles, we have like in Montebello, and also we have the quarry over here where I live. We have places where there's, what do you call those places, you guys? Where they dump the trash. I'm trying to think of the exact name.
Landfills, I think, right?
Thank you, Chris. Yes, landfills. So we have landfills that may bother someone. That's a potential hazard, right? The railroad, the airport, a flood area, seismic area, and wildfires in California, which has been a really big thing, okay? Analyzing the neighborhood is the elevation. What is the elevation of where this property is? Do they look like cottages? Do they look a little bit more coastal? Do they look more bungalow? Do they look more like townhomes? What's the curb appeal of the area? Are there issues of that subject property? And across the street, do we have issues that can decrease the value of the property in the neighborhood? The minute you have 2 or 3 dilapidated properties, or the minute you go into that property and there's nothing but blight, you have a problem. And it's going to decrease the value of property. So you can't just run comps, you guys. And if you do that, you're doing a disservice to yourself and to the knowledge of when you show up to do and present your value, okay? So they ask people questions at the California Association of Realtors, and I don't know if everybody's here is in California. So whatever state you're in, you should always look up, but also with National Association. What do people want in a neighborhood? So there are several things that are important to home buyers when selecting their neighborhood. It says that 68% want easy access to the highway. Oh, okay, 68%. But 74% said they want high quality schools. That's why school districts become really important. But then you have 86% that say they want privacy. Okay, let's see. 80%, they want sidewalks and places to walk. 69% want walking distance to places such as schools and shops. 66% want to live in a community with people at all stages of life. They like the mixture. Then you have 65% want a short commute to work. 66 want an established neighborhood with older homes and mature trees. Let's see. 70 or 55% want to live in a place that's away from it all. So when you know some of these percentages, and also this is a good targeting in your description. When you start describing a property that's going to draw people to that home, that's key, because now you are an expert in knowing what buyers want in a neighborhood. So if they happen to have something like this, then you're going to describe that and that adds value to people. Okay, that adds value to property. So let's look at what most of us kind of take a look at all together, this comparable matrix. We throw this up on our computers, we throw them up in our RVMs, and we go, okay, subject property, throw it in. What does Zillow say? What does Redfin say? What does Realtor.com say? What do all these other places say? I put it in my MLS, do a target, and I come up with all these different comps. Big, small, older, like for like, nearby. Comps, we know, will have a seldom match perfectly. But the greater the similarity, the less need for adjustments to price. When I get into part 3, you're going to come with your calculators, and I'm going to give you examples, and I'm going to give you homework. And I'm going to have you show me that you have figured out how to make adjustments to price. Okay? How do you adjust things when you have to take away? And it's not necessarily PREA taxes. Okay? Because I want to really make sure that I answer your question and you're clear on that before you leave. Okay? But we're not making a lot of adjustments on tax base. Okay, there are some adjustments, but not that much. Does that make sense, you guys? That's the overview. That's the bird's eye view of what we all tend to do. We just like to look at the comps. Important, but there's so much more to look at. So now we've got all these houses we're looking at all this, we're analyzing neighborhoods, and we're choosing our best comparables that we're going to include, because it's all about the selection. We have to choose wisely, right? Now, a property is a comparable if the market considers it a competitive substitute. I want you guys to think about that just for a second. And I want anybody to tell me what they think and what they believe that sentence means. Because a property is a comparable if the market considers it a competitive substitute. So what is a competitive substitute? Any ideas?
Is it where you can get a property that has most of the similarities that we just discussed, like the school district and, in this, just basically having mostly the same specialized information? Would that be the most competitive if it's the most similar?
Yes, absolutely. It's literally not rocket science, right? It is if the market considers it a competitive substitute. Priya.
I would say properties which would attract same kind of buyer. So if in the eyes of the buyers, it's either or, no matter how different or similar they are competitive substitutes.
So I see where you're coming from. You're coming from the perspective of the buyer, right?
Yeah.
And it needs to be competitive, but the buyer really doesn't have the choice if the comp is equal to a similar characteristic.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So the reason I bring this up is because we talked about in the very beginning when I said we have to become little mini appraisers, so to speak, even though we're not appraisers. Learning how to follow Fannie Mae guidelines in your CMA is actually going to increase your ability and the likelihood that the price that you come up with is going to mesh with a formal appraisal. What? Okay, so I remember when we first did our class and I did part 1, and I love it when you guys are honest, because trust me, I didn't get here overnight, and I've learned the hard way and failed forward. Okay, so you have to be vulnerable enough to put yourself out there and say, I don't know how to do this, or you're right, I'm really figuring this out and I have to study, or I have some new learning to do. Okay, once I understood that if I could follow what an appraiser does and the guidelines that they follow, I'm going to get better at becoming a pricing strategist. Because I don't know if you guys know this or not, but there is a lack of respect that people have in the industry for us as realtors. Oh, a huge lack of respect, because they think that we're just door openers. And they also think that all we do is throw it up on the MLS and kind of do a figure round radius and come up with a price. That's the truth. Okay. And then somebody else brings the buyer and sells it. But there are really amazing pricing strategists that I have a lot of respect for, because when they put a property on the market, I know they've done a good job. And I know that they know their area. Their homes are always priced correctly. Their homes get sold not only right on the money or a little bit more because of the desirability they put in their amenities and description. So over time, I wanted to learn what the guidelines were that they follow. And these two URLs that I'm giving you are what appraisers look at. Okay. And these are a couple of the guidelines, and I'm going to go there in a little bit, but I'm going to show you something. I think I have it right at the next one. No, I don't. All right. I'm going to show you guys something. I want you to recognize that I go and I get my information as well to make sure that I'm giving good things and what I have followed also. So let me go ahead and pull it up. See if I can pull it up here. Oh, I have to escape from that. Make it smaller. Okay. So those URLs that I was showing you is simply what I'm going to show you here. Okay, let me share my screen really quick. Let's see if it popped up. Is this it? Yep, that's it. Okay, so you guys should be able to see this now. And I'll make it bigger. Oh, it went away. Sorry about that. Did I go back? This. Okay, so this is the selling guide for the Fannie Mae single family guideline. Okay. And I had already had it on the page that I wanted. So let me go if I can go to 552. $552. And Jay, why do I need all of this? The first time I taught this class with all of you here in Coaching Tank, I had a lot of people be really honest with me and tell me, my broker showed me in 3 minutes how to do a CMA. My broker showed me in 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And for me, that's not good enough. You guys, we need to become better at what we're doing and have a better understanding even as to what an appraiser's looking at, right? So I don't want you to become appraisers. I want you to become pricing strategists, okay? So notice here it says that the following are examples of an unacceptable appraisal practice. This is what's not allowed. So we also need to know and understand what's allowed and not allowed when we do our own CMAs, right? It says here, development of or reporting an opinion of market value that is not supportable by market data or is misleading. Duh. So again, it's not his opinion and it's not your opinion without what? Facts, without the data that you can support it. Otherwise, you're misleading who? A buyer and a seller to believe they can get a price that they can't get. And I'm going to step on toes when I say taking overpriced listings is misleading your seller. And I'm talking about major overpriced listings just because you want the listing and then starting to bring it down in price and bring it down in price and bring it down in price. So you've misled everybody else. I knew a broker, real life story, a broker that would go and market their properties so low so as to do what? Get everybody to come in and, you know, have this frenzy to write a bunch of offers. It's misleading. What ended up happening to that broker? Not only did he get in trouble, get a fine, his mug is on our, you know, California Association of Realtors for doing wrong because he misled people thinking that they could purchase that property for a different price. So that is an unacceptable practice that you should also not be doing, okay? There's also, it says, I'm gonna go to the third one here, use of unsupported assumptions, interjections of personal opinion or perceptions about factors in the valuation process, and the use of subjective terminology, including but not limited to pride of ownership. That's an assumption. Oh, there's such pride of ownership in this house. Guess what? That's an assumption. Or there's no pride of ownership or lack of pride of ownership. Poor neighborhood, good neighborhood, desirable neighborhood, undesirable neighborhood. Just think about it. They have 1,239 different things that they have to learn just to follow guidelines to represent a bank. Okay, so this is the reason why I brought it up. They talk about using adjustments, failure to analyze and report current contract of sale or anything that you fail to bring up as far as a comparable sale, the selection and use of inappropriate comparable sales. You feel me? Like, this is what I'm trying to tell you. We're supposed to be learning how to price somebody's property in 10 minutes because somebody showed us how to do it? Right? So this is why we're here. We're here to become better at our craft. And I'm not saying that you're going to go and become an appraiser. I'm trying to help you see. I've got to follow some guidelines, right? Okay. The other one was if you wanted to go into, and I won't show it to you because I'm going to go right back into it. It was the selection of comparable sales by Fannie Mae. So that is the URL that I gave you guys as well. And you guys can maybe take a picture of it if you'd like. But that way you can say, okay, I got legitimate info here. This is good stuff. I can reuse it. Right? I'd hope you'd want to reuse all of it. All right, so let me keep going. Y'all still with me? Let me tell you, I want it to be rah-rah all the time, but we got to get down to brass tacks. We got to get down and get dirty with this stuff and get better. All right, so now let's go to the fourth part of my system, your system. You're creating a system. Now I finally get to selecting and identifying the comps. So I had to do all those other 3 steps first. And now I'm going to compile my list of the most recent solds. I'm going to look at what expired. I'm going to look at what is in escrow, right? Then I'm going to start to look at the similar floor plans and the styles and the elevation and the same number of stories. Yeah, I think I learned how to do that. Number of bedrooms and baths, comps with the same square footage, give or take 10%. So I'm giving you a percentage if you learned how to do it where you go down 200 or 300 in square footage or 200 or 300 higher in square footage, you can do that as well. It shouldn't be more or less than 10%, okay? I'm going to equal my school zone ratings if my comps are in a different school district than the subject property. Do you need to know school zones? Yes. Do you need to know their ratings? Yes. So if that's not something you're already doing in your practice, get started. Go and learn and find out what the school ratings are being given to the schools around you and where you sell. Okay. Yes, similar lot size, the lot configurations, pie shaped, rectangular, perpendicular, whatever, and their locations. So a corner lot versus if it's next to the green belt, big difference in value and how you would make adjustments to value. Okay. The year built, the dates of the comparable properties, of course, you're going as close as possible. But what if you get a property that was built in 1956 and then right across the street, you had a spec builder and those homes were built in the 1990s? Are you going to have to adjust for age? Maybe, maybe not. Similar features and amenities, such as the garage, the pool, the outside deck, the clubhouse, the community park, the view, all of that, okay? Fannie Mae guidelines, you guys. I want you to be able to tell me if you can answer these questions. This is what an appraiser has to look for. He or she has to look for the trend of property values. Can you tell me, Chris, can you tell me, Kier, is the trend in my neighborhood increasing, stabilizing, or declining? You want to be able to answer that question and actually bring it to the forefront of your presentation. Start getting into practice of these 3 subjects right here and these categories that you're going to answer. Okay, so when you go to the table, Christina or Jessica or Priya, Nancy, and you say, I want to share with you that right now, before I give you the valuation of your property, the trends of property values in your zip code, in Fairview Estates, in whatever where you live, is increasing, or it's stable now, or it's declining. And then you need to say why and how you came up with that answer. Okay. Yes, Priya.
So my question is, in the second column, it says supply of properties. What is the definition for imbalance? Like, how do we calculate if the market or the supply is in balance, or if it's oversupply? Is there a factor? Like,
Yes, ma'am. Excellent question. Absolutely. Let me go ahead and get to that one next. So in the next column, we want to be able to answer this question. Okay, so Priya, The supply of properties in the subject neighborhood, it's either short of inventory, imbalance of inventory, or we have an oversupply of listings, okay? One of the things that we have to understand is what is a seller's market, a buyer's market, or a balanced market? When we're in a seller's market, you guys, somebody give the answer. I can always give the answer, but you guys are becoming pricing strategists. So a seller's market is how many months supply of inventory?
3 months? I don't know.
Yes, ma'am. 3 or less, right? 3 or less. If I have a buyer's market, how much do I have in month supply?
More than 6 months.
More than 6 months. So if I have a 4 to 5 months of inventory in my neighborhood, would you say I'm in balance?
Yes. Okay. Got it.
So it's that really sweet spot and that medium point. And when you know in your marketplace, then you're going to tell your seller, right? Or that prospect. Okay. And now the next column is the marketing time for properties. So you're going to be saying, Nancy, to your seller, to that prospect, Christina. So the marketing time for your subject property currently, because we are in a shortage and the trend of property values is stabilizing, the marketing time for your property is going to be somewhere between 4 to 6 months. This is how you need to speak. This is the answers that you need to provide, not just a price range, not just, I think I can get you this for your house. Because your average Joe, that's how they go on listing appointments. And people ask me, I don't know why I don't get the listing. Show me your presentation and tell me how you arrived at value. And I'm not trying to be rude or condescending. I just simply go, show me your process, right? And answer these questions for me and become better at your craft, okay? So notice that it says here, the appraiser's analysis of a property must take into considerations all factors that affect value. They don't just come up, you guys, with the bird's eye view. They are coming up with the forecasting trends of increasing, stabilizing, or declining, shortage, imbalance, or oversupply, how long it's taking for a property to sell. Because that's exactly what a buyer is going to want from you when they go, so what do you think I should offer? Right? Answer those 3 questions. Okay. Identifying your subject characteristics. A lot of this is going to be common sense, so I'm going to go fast. Obviously, the location, your neighborhood and market area and school district. We already talked about that. Super important. The size. There's a lot of different things in size guidelines. Bedrooms, bath, living space, lot size, garage. The style of property and the year of construction. Your amenities. You guys, do you have a complete understanding of what an amenity is versus an improvement? Guess what? I had to learn that. I thought that was just an amenity when I was growing up in the business versus no, that's an improvement. Oh, okay. So let's see. An amenity is something that what? People can enjoy, it's added value, it provides something that is going to add privacy or things like that, but can also be cross-referenced with an improvement. Is a block wall an amenity and an improvement? If you had a fence in the back that was wood and now you put block, well, I've improved the value of my home and I've also provided an amenity that gives me a different type of privacy. So it's both. A pool, amenity, a deck, amenity, a security system, an amenity, right? A smart home, a view, a near shopping, near public transportation. Improvements are going to add value automatically, common sense. A room addition with square footage. All new appliances are improvements. New roof, new flooring, new window coverings, new paid solar. Paid solar is an improvement because now that's going to reduce what? It's going to reduce the cost of my utilities. Any unique seller appointments, you need to ask that question, okay? And so if you don't ask before you go, you're going to miss out on a seller appointment that might add value. What improvements have you made that are going to increase value so I can include that in my pricing? I'm going to ask that question before I go out on the listing. Okay. What about the condition? Has it been well maintained? What repairs are needed? What deferred maintenance is needed? So here's what happens. I'm gonna take my glasses off. This is where I get serious. When you don't do this research ahead of time, you do the bird's eye view, you use your RVM, you have a good understanding, you think you're good. And you show up to a property that has major deferred maintenance, it's in poor condition, and it has a lot of repairs that's needed. Now you have to adjust your price. Now what are you gonna do? Oh, shoot. So now you come in with an idea of, I think I'm gonna go ahead and list this house for $898,000. Can't get you $898,000 with it looking like this. Give me a break. When I start to show them the comps that are gonna get them 898, it doesn't compare. So do you need to ask these questions before you go on a listing appointment? Yeah, I do. Okay. What are the negatives? Busy street, near a train, industrial district. Are there any stigmas? What's a stigma, you guys? Did somebody die in the house of natural causes? Might be a stigma. Was there a crime near the area that has already stigmatized the area and the neighborhood? You need to be aware of these things before you go out. This is why you get in your car and you also drive out there to see if there's any negatives, because the seller's not going to tell you the negatives like that. They may or they may not unless you ask. Okay.
I wanted to
Go, Priya.
I wanted to ask, like, if the seller does not disclose, say, that somebody died about 2 years ago or 3 years ago, maybe a close relative, and now they are selling after a few years, are they supposed to disclose that? And if they don't, just in case, how can we verify that there was no death in the home, like for, I don't know, say in the past 10, 20 years?
Yeah, great question. You really can't verify if there's been a death unless you would actually go and do major research, I would believe. They are to disclose in the state of California up to 3 years unless the person died of AIDS. So if that person died of AIDS, legally they're not to disclose that information. But if they fail to disclose, it's on them.
Okay.
100%. 100%.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So location guidelines, we've talked about the geographic. Yes, close as possible to the subject property, but how close is close enough? Depends on where you live, right? Depends on where you're at. Everybody teaches a mile radius. But what if you live in the city and in an urban area, your target radius can be a half a mile when you have so many that you have to look at. So condos, same building and floor plans in LA, you don't have to go out a mile, do you? Now, Christina excused herself because she had another appointment, so she's gonna watch later. But single family homes, 1/2 mile radius in the same neighborhood is still good enough. I don't have to go out the mile radius, and appraisers don't always do it either. If it's in the same school boundaries and public transportation routes, you're good with a 1/2 mile. When you get into the suburbs and you get into small towns, you go into that mile, you get into the same subdivision, the same neighborhood, the same complex for multifamily houses, duplex, triplexes, quadplexes, commuter rails, again, transportation. Once you get into rural, if anybody sells rural, okay, then you can go out all the way up to 5 miles as long as it's in the same township. Okay. Now, rural does not necessarily mean it's a farmhouse or a ranch house. What I found is that the US Census Bureau defines 2 types of urban areas. If you're in an urbanized area of 50,000 or more people, okay, that's an urbanized area. An urban cluster is 2,500, but less than 50,000. So any area outside of these urban areas is rural. Oh my gosh, MJ, I didn't know that. Now you know, because you may get to some crazy property that you get an opportunity to sell, and now you know that you're going to have to be looking it up differently based on how the census looks at areas. Okay. So when you're looking at your closings, your date of closed sale guidelines, what's your rule of thumb? We all learned that the closed date of sale as a comp should fall within 90 days of your CMA study. Where is today's market is the question you have to ask in the market that you're in. So is it always going to be 90 days, Chris? Probably not, right? When markets change, and have they changed, and they change quick, I feel like they change on light switch in some of our markets like it did. So it's rapidly, then you have an interval of more than 90 days, then now you're not comparing apples to apples anymore. Now you have to pivot and adjust for the changing market, because 2 months ago, I could get this, but last month we had a house that got $50,000 less. Now I have to change it. So here's some sale guidelines for market conditions, just something to think about, Priya, because I know you were talking a little bit about just understanding balance, right? And so forth. Changing market. You need to speak like this when you're talking to your sellers, okay? So a changing market is anything that's or area that's more than a 3% increase, has had more than a 3% increase or decrease in the last 6 months. Can you tell me in your local area right now if you know that it's had more than 3% or decreased in the last 6 months? Are you in a stable market now where there's no more than 3% change in the last 6 months? That's a question. So not every area is changing as rapidly as another area. Some areas are stabilizing. The market is not necessarily crashed, you guys. It's stabilizing in certain zip codes. How many of you are going to agree? Thumbs up? Yes. I'm seeing stabilization in different marketplaces. And so you need to be able to look at your timeline. And if you guys are going, oh, damn, Jaylee, is this like really rich stuff? I didn't do my CMAs like that. Then I hope you're going to change a little bit as to what you do, right? So the timeline that you're looking at here, hold on one second, Priya. I want to get through this slide and then I'll get right with you. In the timeline, when we're looking at the first 90 days, January through March, right? In slow markets, you're finding an adequate number of similar properties they've sold within 90 days. That can be difficult in a slow market. Do we have less inventory right now? Is the market slow? Where I live, it is, okay? But when I don't have enough comparables within 90 days, I have to move my research up to what? 6 months, okay? And now I have to adjust for time when I'm even going into more of 6 months. We're gonna see what happens in 2023, okay? And then I'm gonna give you an example right now and see if you guys can figure it out. Priya.
So my question was about the previous slide, the 3% change in the market. Where do we get those stats? Like, is that something we have to calculate ourselves in the MLS, or do we have to get it from, like, say, our realtor association or car?
You're gonna do it. You're gonna do it through the MLS and looking at the median sales price of the last property sold in the last 6 months to where we are today. That's the whole part of the study. So you're using your MLS. Are you in the CRMLS or what state are you in?
California, LA, CRMLS.
Excellent. So in the CRMLS, one of the tools that are there is called Info Sparks.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Okay, Info Sparks is a great tool for this type of understanding in differences for percentage. Okay, but what I'm going to show you is the next slide. I'm going to give you an example because she asks great questions. I love your questions. It's very important because I'm sure someone else might be thinking it. And maybe it brings about some understanding. Depending on the market, you guys can read it with me down here. The price of homes 9 months or a year ago may be different from the price today. Duh, especially in what's happened with us. But in 2020 to 2021, it didn't change very much, did it? In fact, it just kept going up and going up, but it was changing rapidly for the better for sellers. This adjustment can be made by looking at how. Priya, this is how you figure it out. You look at the median sales price of properties at the time that the comp sold. And then you look at the median price today. The percentage difference is where you even make adjustments, and then you know whether it's stabilizing or not. Okay.
God. Okay.
So let me go to the next slide. Someone is going to tell me the answer. I have a model match property that sold 9 months ago for $925,000. That was the median sales price 9 months ago. It is model match, like for like, in all similarities. Okay. Today's new property median sales price for that property is $898,000. What is my percentage difference? So you're going to subtract 898,000 from 925,000. That's $27,000 difference.
2.9%.
I'm gonna divide the difference, right, of 27,000 into my new median sales price of 898. And then I add that difference in percentage. So Priya, what's the percentage?
2.9%, but I calculated it off of 925. So
That's
20,
fine.
yeah.
There's a couple of ways to do it. You can divide if you wanted. I did it this way because it's easy for the example. So at the end of the day, it's 3%. You answered it correctly. So that's the difference in the adjustment of price. So when I go back to a changing market, what's the answer for this seller? Am I in a changing market or a stable market? Don't let Priya answer all the time, guys. I have a 3%. What'd you say, Kier?
Changing market.
Does
Oh,
everybody
sorry.
agree?
It was changing market, 3%. So
Yeah. Does everybody agree it's a changing market?
I would say it's stable because it's been 9 months, and it's 2.9, a little bit under 3. So I don't know. I'm confused.
Right. Well, here's the thing. It's no more than 3% change in price in the last 6 months. Or has there been more than a 3% increase or decrease in the last 6 months?
Stable.
It's stable. It's stable, just according to this example, you guys. Obviously, we're not looking at the entire comparable analysis of every other property that's there. But when we're just looking at that example, well, you know what? It's still a stable market. There is a difference, though, of 3% that has now been adjusted. Make sense? Here, does that make sense?
yes, now it does.
Okay. So this is how we're learning. This is how you're grasping all of this. And you're going to take it and you're going to go, oh, dang, like I wasn't doing it this way. Okay, we're going to learn how to do things differently. You're going to add some twists, Jessica, to how you're doing your CMAs now, because I know you're very good at your CMAs. We want to become like stellar at how we come up with pricing. Our guidelines: living area, garage size, lot size. We're looking at gross living area, right? We're looking at the differences in garage size having to do with 1 or 2 parking spaces, whether or not I have unique spaces and height, living area, right? We know lot sizes. We just talked about that. Those are the guidelines. You have to look at your living area. Obviously, the easiest search parameter is the number of bedrooms and bath. Sure. But what is the data on the room count and size? If it isn't standardized because they added a room, you're going to have to make adjustments. And I'm going to teach you how to make adjustments when we do part 3, because that's factors, numbers, and combining numbers. So the minute they go, oh, well, you know, I just want to let you know, Chris, I bought the model that was 2,231 square feet, but I added a mini suite downstairs because my dad came to live with me because I had an oversized, family room. And so I added to, to the area. And it's a 500 square foot mini suite. Okay, not a standardized room. So now you have this master bedroom, maybe with an ensuite and a big closet, that you're going to have to make an adjustment for because you've added square footage, but you've added a room count. How do I do that? I'm going to show you how to do that in part 3, because that happens and it's going to happen to you. And you can't just add bedroom 4 and change all your comps to bedroom 4 when it has a different size to the room. Okay. Now, room additions also need that adjustment and the count and size. Garages, they're not part of the living area. So where do you park your car? Oversized truck or trailer is a size consideration, and it also adds value. So you need to adjust for value. RV parking versus non-RV parking, extra added spaces on the side that they added, all of that is going to help. If you're parking only in the street and there's no storage for you anywhere, that's going to decrease value. By how much? We got to talk about that, right? Covered parking versus carport, storage versus non-storage. Does all of this change the value when you decide that you're going to offer them a suggested price? The answer is yes. Okay. We already talked about lot. I'm not going to get into lot too much. The age of the property. So when you're in a subdivision or a condo complex, properties are going to likely be the same age in your construction. In an area that has both newer and older homes, adjustments for age of the comps are more likely necessary. So does age matter? It does matter. I've got properties that are brand spanking new, a couple of blocks away from me. That's actually adding value to my property, right? As long as those appraise, okay? Then of course you have amenities, and you've got to know the differences between your amenities. Lofts, basements, soaker tubs, barns, stables, solar panels. Your comps need to reflect the amenities for the subject property. And your goal is always that the most similar amenities are in your subject property, okay? Knowing what buyers don't want is important. Knowing what they want is also important, okay? So you've got to be able to know what is hot as far as an amenity right now and what is not. Notice that they said an elevator, 70%, shower stalls in the master bath, wet bars, laminate countertops, outdoor kitchens, glass front cabinets, and ceramic tile countertops. Okay, according to a recent survey, buyers do not want these in their new house. So what do they want? What's hot right now? Because a buyer's tastes affect the value of amenities. Their tastes, from market to market to market, what's the hottest thing that everybody wants right now? And that house has it, hot commodity, okay? So when considering the importance of that amenity in your pricing, you got to think about what's hot. So I want somebody to just tell me really quickly, and we're getting close to close. What currently is a hot amenity in your marketplace right now? Think about it. Yeah, that's hot. If they have that, that house has that. What is it?
Remodeled kitchen.
Remodeled kitchen. Now, a remodeled kitchen is more of an improvement on the onset of it all. What's a hot amenity?
It being close to like parks or like with a view, especially in like LAOC, any kind of view.
Okay, view. Is that a hot amenity in your marketplace?
I mean, I've seen most of my buyers look for something like that. That's unattainable mostly.
Okay, okay. Hot, because amenities have everything to do with a buyer's taste on what they're gonna want. Chris, what do you got as a hot amenity?
The privacy, the space between the properties.
Okay, now that's lot size that I can't really do much to. Right?
Right.
So I don't really have control over the amenity that's added. But I like what you said about privacy, because that's an added amenity. How did you provide the privacy? How did you provide, the spacing so that you don't have that? Hot amenities, you guys, are anything that's getting people excited of going, that house has that. Most houses have that now. What do most houses have now that everybody wants as an amenity?
Technology.
Technology. That's an amenity. That house is a smart house. That house has the Nest. That house has the, you feel me? That's what I'm talking about, is that's hot. Even the way people's yards are being done and low maintenance on the way they're doing, which is an improvement, but it's also an amenity, are pavers and the way they've done their lighting, low lighting, drip systems are amenities because everybody's into, conserving water and things like that. Amenities are they're gonna change from market to market. If you go to LA and you're in a condo, what's a different type of amenity that they're gonna want versus somebody who lives in the suburbs? Okay, so you need to know and ask your seller, what would you consider the hottest amenity in your house that's just gonna draw people to come to your house? What is that? And I want us to talk about the difference between Mr. Seller and Mrs. Seller, an amenity versus an improvement to your home. Okay, because improvements are different. Now we're updating and we're taking care of deferred maintenance. They improve what's going on in the home. We're taking a 20-year-old kitchen and we're improving it into a new kitchen. That's an adjustment to a comparable that we need to change as far as pricing. Okay, that's an improvement. There's also over improvements. An improvement might be an over improvement depending on the local market. Okay, so you can have a 1-car garage to a 3-car garage could be an improvement in a suburb, but it would be an over improvement in an urban area where there's public transportation. I don't need a 3-car garage because I take the metro. Okay, so that would be an over improvement, right? Anybody have any unique improvements that they could name that's really, really unique, or an over improvement that you've seen in a property?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, how about like when people convert their garages to rental properties? How does that affect like the value? Because
Oh, and that's a great question. I mean, that is going to affect the value because if it's permitted versus non-permitted, now if you have a permitted property, I'm going to be adding living area square footage,
yeah,
and that can definitely increase the value. But if it's not what everybody else is doing in the area, then it just simply is something I have to make an adjustment to based on the square footage. Do you think that's a unique improvement?
not so unique anymore, I guess.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not so unique anymore, but
Yeah.
some people improve their properties to turn it into a rental. And if it is bringing in income, it is added value because now I can turn it into income property as long as it's all done on the up and up and legally and, with the right permits. Any other like unique improvements, you guys, or any over improvements you can think of? Like, why would they do that?
What about when somebody decides to add a tree house or like a slide for their kids in the backyard? Is that an improvement?
And that's like maybe it's a structure and it's like in the ground and you can't take it out. That would be an over improvement that's not necessary,
Okay.
especially if nobody else is doing it. But it's a unique improvement.
Okay.
But it's more of an amenity, Priya, because not everybody wants a tree house in the back.
That's true.
Would it
Okay.
be like them remodeling the kitchen, but like personalizing it to their color and their something that might not be so generic?
That affects the taste of a buyer. It would be colors. I would have to say that. That's more of like a styling. But we're talking about improvements, you guys. And an improvement is something that's going to add value. Would you say solar is an improvement if it's paid for, if it's going to add value, and now I'm going to have less in my utilities? I don't know that that's a unique improvement anymore, but it was 6, 7, 8 years ago. The houses, that was a hot thing. That house has solar. That's a unique improvement. Okay. But an over improvement would be like having more the 3-car garage when everybody takes the bus and a metro. But in a suburban area, what would be an over improvement? You didn't necessarily need to do that. Anybody seen any over improvements? What's really important to do too is preview property. You should be previewing property every single day, at least a minimum of 2. Minimum of 2, because you get into houses, you get to see what's going on, you get to see what's being sold, and you recognize what's an over improvement versus a unique improvement. Because there's good unique improvements that people make that a buyer's going to want. But an over improved yard, there's a lot of over improvements sometimes in a backyard that people wouldn't use. A koi pond, you improved it by putting a water feature, but now I have this amenity that I have. Not everybody has a koi pond. So that's more of an amenity, but you improve the property by putting a pump and you put a hole in the ground with water and it's a waterfall. And you didn't need to do that in a small yard where it wasn't necessary. Now you've taken away from the rest of the use of the space. Over improvement. Make sense? Okay. So go ahead, dear.
What about a balcony, like a balcony on the second floor?
It could be an over improvement if it doesn't have a view and it's not looking at anything but the guy's backyard.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh, well, that didn't need to be done because that was useless. Didn't need it. But if they wanted to do it, that's an over improvement example. That's very good, especially with no view, right? Especially with no view. So what one thing, you guys, this was a lot and I went over, I knew it was going to go over it a little bit today. What one thing will you work on to do differently now when you're choosing and selecting your comps?
Do better research, much better research with these tools.
More research, right? Maybe more. Anyone else? What's that one thing that you're going to work on to do differently?
Make sure I go out and preview the the neighborhood.
Just to look at the surrounding neighborhood, right?
Neighborhood and then the houses that are out there too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Priya, anything different you're going to do now, that just the one thing you might work on differently now?
I would say I'll pay more close attention to like improvements and amenities versus just looking at the square footage and number of bedrooms and bathrooms.
Excellent. There's always something different that we can tweak to have a better analysis. Would you agree? Our evaluation now is going to change. Your analysis should change. And then when we get into part 3, we're going to learn a little bit more about how we can't always rely on RVMs. Okay. Those are those, valuation models that you just throw it up there and it throws up a price. Can't always rely on that. The MLS is going to give you better data. You're going to run into some roadblocks when you trust only those sources. I'm going to give you an evaluation checklist for you to kind of go through and go, oh, cool. Now I can really sort this out a little better. And then we're going to go into some facts with some examples, some numbers, and then we're going to talk about what some of those adjustments are going to be. And then you'll be able to go, oh, that's how you adjust for that. And that's how I would adjust for that. And that's where I can add a certain percentage between here and here for this type of improvement or that type of amenity or that type of lot size. But I hope you can see why I couldn't do that all the day, because we have to break it up in parts. Okay. Any other questions as we wrap it up? No? Mind blown? Oh, is it woo?
Yeah.
Yes, but in a good way.
Are you guys okay?
I'm loving it. For the first time, I'm feeling like I know what actually CMA means.
Awesome. That you just made my day, Priya. You made my day, because I think there is a true misunderstanding all together, all across the board. And I don't care what state you live in this United States. Not everybody understands the true meaning of putting together a correct analysis and evaluation of a property. And so when you do, you become a pricing strategist. Your level of confidence is going to go through the roof, and all you're going to want to do is list properties. And that's what you want to do, because if you're a listing agent, you're a lasting agent, and that's the person, you become the go-to person. You'll start to talk about that on your social media. You'll start to talk about those things because you have a better understanding of the market. Okay.
Thank you. I feel so much more confident as an agent.
Excellent. Excellent. I hope you feel good too, Chris, Nancy.
Yeah,
And-
no, definitely this gave me a better idea of how the process should be, because yeah, for the most part, it was just 10-20 minutes that, you know, you look at the comps on the MLS and you go to the cloud CMA and basically that's it. But I don't think I was ever told, oh yeah, actually go out to the neighborhoods. This is what an improvement is. This is what an amenity is.
Excellent. I'm glad. I'm here to bring value so that we become better at what we do, because all the rah will always be there. But when it comes down to the behind the scenes, what makes a great real estate counselor and advisor is the one who really understands their market, right? All right, you guys, we're all done for today. I'll be posting up what we've got for February. Please, if you're getting value out of this, tell other people that you know need to be here and that are not members of Coaching Tank. We still have a few spots left for $96 for the year, and then that price will be changing. And I'll put up the calendar for what's coming up in February. I know I'm doing buyer consultations and some intentional systems for next month. And Felix is also doing some really cool social media. So everybody have a great afternoon. God bless you. And MJ's out. Bye for now.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.